he was shown to be a fool, so now he's trying to like 180 it, but it's not really working. God, this is honestly like an embarrassing performance on his part. I wanted to watch Destiny debate this, if I'm gonna be fair, if I'm gonna be honest, like Muslim radical on Andrew Tate. And when I say that, I'm not kidding. I saw him debate in person. This guy has very extremist views when it comes to homosexuality and what should be permitted in society and allowed, when it comes to, you know, talking about like a lot of, I don't want to get too into it, but he has a lot of really extreme beliefs around how society should operate, right? Evil City's talking about in chat about child marriages and this guy. Yeah, I don't want to get into too much detail, but this guy is what you would deem an extremist. Okay, I'm not saying he's ISIS or anything, but this guy is a religious extremist. Okay, and he has gone on the Modern Day Debate show a lot. He's like a Modern Day Debates regular. I saw him debate in person, and that extremism like just bled through the camera, and you can see it in this debate as his extremism bleeds through the camera as he defends Andrew Tate as his quote, and I quote, Muslim brother. And I'm not against anybody finding fellowship and friendship through religion, but when this debate is about whether Andrew Tate sex trafficked women, him being Muslim should not even be mentioned. It should not even be in consideration. His religious beliefs do not matter. If he sex traffics women, that's bad and deserves no defense, no matter the religion. Religion shouldn't even come up. So let's go through this. It should be pretty interesting. New Russian technology, the horse stretcher. What's this? Oh, I've seen this video. I love this video. Fantastic, man. And that's the love and care Russian soldiers can expect. Okay, let's watch the debate.
She does have the opportunity to just open the door and run away, but there's this threat looming over her head, and there's also, you know, the fact that she doesn't speak the language. She doesn't speak the Romanian language. So do you think that she's being coerced in that way?
That would be an argument you have to make in front of a court. Yeah, that there was coercion involved. The person felt like there was a genuine threat to.
By the way, I'm gonna be honest. I watched like a good 10 to 20 minutes of this debate, like before stream, because I wanted to see if it was worth watching. Destiny, this is one of his best performances, unironically. He's on point. He's constantly dragging it back to the points of the debate. He's really, really, really good. And this guy is very wordy too. So the fact he was able to like hold him down on these points and perform as good as he's about to, honestly is impressive. He does very well here.
To harm that person, that there was a genuine threat to their life, that they felt like they were being financially exploited and they couldn't leave. These are all arguments.
So they felt that way. They felt like that. That's subjective. That's exactly my point.
So hold on, let me just be clear. Your point is that feelings are inadmissible in a court of law? That how a person feels about a thing?
Feelings are subjective. That's
Do you understand what mens rea is? Oh, like half of the criminal code has.
Literally, feelings are somewhat dependent upon whether you get first degree, second degree, third degree, like the motives that go into it. Oh gosh, this is a great debate.
To do with the person's state of mind.
Well, it's a great debate in the way that Destiny performs so well here.
And how they felt about things before going into it, of course.
Yeah, if you start accepting things like how a person feels and that being evidence for criminal action, then all kinds of criminality is happening around us every day.
Yeah, this is how all criminal law works.
No,
all of it needs this.
Murder is not based on that. Murder is not based on anyone's
Of course it is based on your feelings.
If a person kills another, premeditated, kills another person.
Like these are things, the feelings, like they actually dictate first, second, or third degree murder. For example, ever heard of a crime of passion? Like, for example, if you walk in on your wife getting plowed by another guy and you go into a rage and kill him, that could actually be treated differently than if it was a different type of murder, because they could claim, oh, it was a crime of passion. He wasn't in control of himself. His emotions got the better of him. Like this actually does matter in a court of law.
There's a dead body there. You had the motive. You actually had the weapon. You engaged.
What is motive? What is motive? That's a feeling. Is it my time to go?
Yep.
Cool. In December of last year, Andrew and Tristan Tate were arrested along with 2 Romanian nationals. According to Tate, the Romanian Directorate for Investigating Organized Crime and Terrorism, the 4 suspects appear to have created an organized crime group with the purpose of recruiting, housing, and exploiting women by forcing them to create pornographic content meant to be seen on specialized websites for a cost. Tate claims that it had identified 6 victims in the human trafficking case who were subjected to acts of physical violence and mental coercion and were sexually exploited by the members of the alleged crime group. The agency said victims were lured with pretenses of love and later intimidated, kept under surveillance, and subjected to other control tactics while being coerced into engaging in recorded pornographic acts. These claims have been widely discussed online, with misinformation being presented by both the left and right in an effort to either prematurely exonerate or demonize the Tate brothers for their actions. Regardless of anyone's personal feelings about the Tate brothers, however, I believe it is reasonable to assume that they have been involved in sex trafficking based on the evidence that is released thus far and the statements the Tate brothers themselves have made. I will stress, however, that new evidence could come to light that would change my opinion on these matters, though it would have to be quite fantastic to divert from what is already known. According to the 2014 Romanian Criminal Code, Article 210, trafficking in human beings is defined as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons for exploitation purposes by means of coercion, abduction, deception, or abuse of authority, or by taking advantage of a person's blatant state of vulnerability, where exploitation is defined by Article 182 as forcing persons into prostitution, pornography, in view of obtaining and distributing pornographic material or any other types of sexual exploitation. That means, for us to say that we have a reasonable belief that Andrew Tate was involved in trafficking, we need to meet just 3 conditions. Did Andrew Tate recruit, transport, and harbor women onto his property to work for his camming business? Were there women being exploited to work for his webcam business? And did Andrew engage in deception to lure these women into his business? I believe we can easily meet all 3 of these conditions with publicly available evidence right now, so let's review. Did Andrew Tate recruit, transport, and harbor women onto his property to work for his camming business? Andrew has spoken extensively about how he would recruit women to his camming business. According to his website, Andrew bragged that he had been running a webcam studio for nearly a decade and claimed that he had over 75 girls work for him. He said his business model is different than 99% of webcam studio owners, and that over 50% of his employees were actually just his girlfriends at the time, and over 50% of his employees were actually his girlfriends at the time, and none of them were in the adult entertainment industry before they met him. The page where he stated this has since been deleted, but can be accessed via the internet. Tates were also extremely protective of women on their properties. On the podcast PTW with Entrepreneur with Cars, Tristan speaks about demanding absolute loyalty from his girls that he both fucks and employs as cam models, not allowing them to message other men on Instagram.
By the way, before this even gets started, if you want to know my position, Andrew Tate has basically publicly admitted, before even what the Romanian government's going to bring forward as evidence, that he's a cyber pimp. And he's done it on multiple occasions, as Destiny is going to go through in this video. That is what I believe. Obviously, I'm going to wait until the court case is done to see if he's like a pimp in the way that they have evidence of him engaging in this pimping and that what he said online is what he actually engaged in and wasn't just like, I don't know, a character possibly, or he was playing it up. That is what we're going to see. But like all things said, all of the addendums that I could possibly add, gun to my head, he's a cyber pimp.
Instagram or fall in love with any other person. He speaks about these women as both partners and business assets and says that communicating with other men would be breaking protocol. In Tristan's God Mode coaching guide, he speaks about having 6 different girlfriends whom he demands absolute loyalty from, and all 6 girls that he brags about dating are cam girls that work exclusively for him, following every single order he gave them. He also speaks about having access to social media accounts of these women so that they're unable to communicate with other men. Andrew Tate has similarly spoken about how the women who work for him were not allowed out of the house, not allowed to go to clubs or restaurants with their friends, and not allowed to leave without accompanied bodyguards. They were forced to stay inside of his properties to work for him in Romania, where he transported the women to. I believe that this alone easily satisfies condition 1. The Tates indeed recruited women from other countries onto their property to work exclusively for their camming business. For condition 2, were the Tates... Wait, do I have a timer anywhere? What am I at?
You're at about 3 minutes, so you're still good.
Cool. Okay, good. For condition 2, with the Tates exploiting women to work for his webcam business. Not only were the women obviously being set up to work in the webcam business, Andrew Tate admitted to stealing from them while running their accounts. He spoke in a now deleted video about how to effectively take girls, teach them
This right here is like super damning.
How to make unlimited money at home and give all of that money to him. He also spoke about making sure that the women knew she always needed him for work, even if they didn't, and spoke about strategies that pimps would utilize in order to keep women mentally weak. He gave guidance to his viewers on how to keep the women working under him by lying to them about how complicated their taxes were, and then further admits to stealing additional money from his victims by lying about their tax liabilities. In the example that he gave, he claimed that for every $10,000 they made, he'd give them $3,000 and keep $7,000, then lie about them, getting 50% of the cut, and explain that he had to pay extra due to taxes. Not only does this amount to tax and employer fraud, it easily clears the bar for exploitation. For condition 3, the question arises whether or not there was deception involved in luring girls into their sex trafficking racket. Fortunately for us, Andrew has given tons of evidence about how he would regularly engage in deception to trick women into coming to work for his camming business. He commonly gave advice for how to use a close associate, Vivian, to sell the idea of camming to other girls by downplaying her relationship with Tate and showing the other girls a good time.
Literally a bottom bitch. Again, pimp.
He would also describe how Vivian would play along with Tate in order to make other girls, or newer girls, feel more special to Tate than they actually were. While describing this interaction, he even refers to Vivian as his bottom bitch, which is common pimp terminology for a woman close to the pimp who helps him recruit and entrap other women to work for him. He speaks about pairing new girls with Vivian, using Vivian to show new girls a good time. In logs leaked by the Romanian prosecution, Andrew promises marriage to a girl in order to get her to move to Romania with him. Condition 3 is easily met, as Andrew regularly deceives women using the commonly described lover boy method for his sex trafficking organization. There are other problematic aspects we can discuss with Andrew Tate, such as him messaging 15 to 16-year-old girls across Romania from Instagram, the 2 abuse videos leaked of him on the internet, the leaked audio log of him talking about choking a woman and loving it, conversations where women were threatened with violence for not earning.
Oh my God. And the way he talked about it in the audio too, he was like, what, are you mad I choked you like just like a little bit? You didn't even pass out. It was like, it's like the most like insane serial killer stuff you can imagine.
Enough money and more. Regardless of the other accusations, I believe there is enough evidence floating on the internet now to believe with a decent probability that the Tates will be convicted of some crime around trafficking, unless something significant changes between now and the trial.
Thank you very much for that opening. And want to let you know, folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, we are a neutral channel hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. We hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from. And don't forget, we have many more juicy upcoming debates. You don't want to miss them. For example, at the bottom right of your screen, absolutely thrilled for this one, Stuart Nettle and Matt Dillhunty will be debating this Thursday on whether or not Christianity is rational. You don't want to miss it. Hit that subscribe button. And with that, we're going to kick it over to Daniel for his opening as well. Thanks so much for being with us, Daniel. The floor is all yours.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. As a Muslim, I completely condemn Andrew Tate's past involvement with the webcam business. I also condemn his personal behavior that is contrary to the values of Islam. That being said, last year he converted to Islam, which means he is my Muslim brother, and as such, I will stand by his side and support him while also condemning his past actions. As far as Islam is concerned, Andrew Tate was in the wrong for his webcam business, but so were the cam girls working for him. If his cam girls one day convert to Islam, we would also consider them sisters in Islam.
Oh my, he shouldn't be. This has nothing to do with Islam. This is stupid. Let's move on.
And stand by their side. But this debate is not about whether Andrew Tate violated Islamic law.
Yes, so let's move on.
There is no question that he did. The debate today is on whether he broke existing Western laws.
And he did. He did. He admit, like, he said that he steals their money and says it's taxes, don't worry about it. That is alone a crime, and he admitted it on camera. That alone. Not even talking about the Romanian government's accusations of threats of violence and all the rape accusations, everything else. We already know he's committed a crime because he admits to it on camera like a fool. The question is, like, what can the government get him for? And if the sex trafficking, that'll stick.
Cannot be proven at present. There are 3 major issues here. 1, political control. 2, due process. And 3, contradictions in Western attitudes towards sex. First, let's talk about political control. Western governments control speech and political opponents through charges of terrorism or charges of abuse of women. Charges of abuse of women include things like trafficking, domestic abuse, sex discrimination, or harassment. There's a long history of the US government using these charges of abuse of women to target political opponents. Examples include Emmett Till, as well as numerous civil rights activists
number one, let's be clear. This is happening in Romania, not the United States. Okay, so we're talking about MLK. This is in Romania. This is Romanian law that we're talking about. It's a Romanian prosecutor. That's the first thing. And second thing, the Tate brothers specifically said Andrew Tate said he was moving to Romania because their laws are better for him. And so he moves to a state, says openly, I'm moving here because it's much easier to get away with stuff. Still gets caught. I think by his own standard, he must have really messed up if he still got caught. And third, there's no evidence that this was politically targeted whatsoever. Tons and tons and tons of celebrities also commit crimes and get arrested for committing crimes. And a lot of those, actually, the vast majority of them are not conspiracies. So you would need to prove that the government of the United States was so interested in stopping Andrew Tate from making 14-year-old little boys hate women that they would go to Romania, twist the arm of the prosecutor, have them raid Andrew Tate's background, and all these other things that Andrew Tate said on camera. I guess that was all a character, or he was all fibbing, or it wasn't true. Like none of this has been proven. There's no evidence of it. So this is just rampant speculation. You could do this about anyone. What if I just started saying like, well, actually, they wanted to drag down Jeffrey Epstein to make all the politicians look bad. Like, I could say that with no evidence, but I have no evidence to back that up. So I don't even say it. I wouldn't even dare say it because it would be embarrassing to suggest something with literally no evidence.
Most famously Martin Luther King. Declassified FBI documents show that the U.S. government targeted MLK in their counterintelligence program. Specifically, they plan to blackmail MLK through smearing him as a rapist and serial abuser of women. Other alleged abusers in more recent times include Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Governor Andrew Cuomo, Senator Al Franken, and on and on. My point is not that all these politicians were innocent. My point is that accusations of abusing women is a powerful weapon that is often used to neutralize political opposition. Other high-profile examples include Tariq Ramadan in France and Julian Assange. Tariq Ramadan was an Oxford professor who often criticized France and other EU countries for discrimination against Muslims. For this, he was targeted and eventually detained and put into solitary confinement for months on multiple charges of rape. All the initial charges were eventually dropped when it was discovered that his accusers had colluded with each other to make their claims and that their claims were inconsistent with verified facts. Another case is Julian Assange, infamous for his work with WikiLeaks exposing all kinds of government criminality. Assange faced accusations of rape by two Swedish women who it turns out had also colluded with each other. After 7 years of Assange being holed up, the Swedish authorities dropped the case because, quote, the memories of the women had faded about the alleged incidents. The whole case was dropped, but the political objective had been achieved of neutralizing Assange, since he is now facing extradition to the US, where he'll be either imprisoned for life or executed. Tate's case has a lot of parallels with Assange and other political dissidents. We cannot ignore this context of political control through accusations of rape and abuse of women. Point 2, due process.
Okay. Can I just say, we absolutely can, because there's no evidence that's the case here. If every single time something like this happens where somebody comes on camera and says, yes, I committed these crimes, we're like, well, maybe the government, they're trying to accuse. He came out and publicly said it. If I came out and said I'm gonna murder somebody, and then the government said, well, we found his body, he murdered him, your first thing is, well, maybe what actually happened is the government planted. Like, nah, like we can kind of tell what happened here. It's a little obvious, isn't it? And so unless you have evidence of a conspiracy, don't suggest it. You can make this conspiracy or claim the conspiracy on literally anything. You can anywhere.
His brother and 2 others face charges of trafficking and rape, etc. The problem is these charges violate fundamental aspects of due process. This is because 1, the crimes are poorly defined. 2, they have low standards of evidence, for example, simply the verbal claims of women. And 3, they can be made at any time for the events in the past as needed, meaning there's no statute of limitations. And
a statute of limitations is not necessary for you to have due process in a country. Like that could be like a thing in the United States, but like if another country says you raped somebody 20 years ago, we found out you raped them, you're going to prison. Like that doesn't necessarily mean you didn't have due process, you didn't have a fair case, you didn't have trial lawyers, jury to look at and review it. That doesn't necessarily suggest that at all.
Four, they result in extreme social damage, even without conviction. Due process is a basic human right acknowledged in all legal systems. This is to protect people from the inevitable false accusations. So, for example, rape is poorly defined. Why? Proving rape requires proving either fraud and or coercion, but both fraud and coercion are highly subjective and evolving standards. If a man tells a woman that he loves her in order to have sex with her, but he doesn't actually love her, is that fraud? If a woman lies to a man about her body count and then sleeps with him, is that fraud and therefore rape? If making false claims amounts to rape, there will be a huge amount of rape cases in society because people often lie in their relationships. But Western law actually allows for many kinds of dishonesty without being technically fraud or rape. Something can be immoral, in other words, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is illegal. Same with coercion. If you chain someone to a radiator and force her to be a prostitute, that's clear coercion. But the definition of coercion is much more subjective than that because of power differentials. This is why statutory rape is a thing. Even if a 15-year-old gives consent, it doesn't count because he or she cannot give meaningful consent to an adult who is more mature and more powerful according to Western law. Many feminists argue that as long as a man is bigger, stronger, and more powerful than a woman, there can never be meaningful consent, and therefore any sexual activity is by default rape. Another issue is, what about
I love that it's like, hey, there's evidence of Andrew Tate sex trafficking and he's openly admitted to sex trafficking until now. What's your response? Well, first off, you can never have it could be a conspiracy. And two, what is truly the meaning of rape? And can he truly have a fair case in Romania? Like, okay, this isn't even a debate anymore if he's guilty of sex trafficking. This is the debate of, well, should we question every single person who comes forward and say I sex traffic? What is the true meaning of it? This is like floundering. Like, we haven't even started yet, and it feels like this, like, all these arguments don't address anything that Destiny said whatsoever.
About affirmative consent? If you do not affirmatively get consent for every single action you do in the middle of a sex act, that is technically rape according to the national.
I like this. I love it. Hey, well, when people talked about consent, nowadays people want you to actively get consent. So can we really arrest Andrew Tate for sex trafficking when we're saying that? Huh? Like, what? This has nothing to do with the accusation. Nothing whatsoever. Is it, well, rape's poorly defined, therefore you can't arrest anyone for rape. Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Women's Law Center and actually the Biden administration. Trafficking is also a highly subjective charge for exactly the same reasons, because fraud and coercion and exploitation are very subjective as defined by these legal systems. And finally, point three, inconsistent liberal attitudes towards sex and female responsibility. On the one hand, liberals have this casual understanding of sex, and they accuse Muslims of being too prudish and too restrictive about sex. We are told that sex work and pornography are just harmless, natural activities. Why are Muslims or religious people so uptight about it? Having casual sex or displaying your naked body on camera is no more harmful than breathing air or eating a sandwich. But if that's the case, then what really was the harm done to these women, even if they were forced to webcam? By the liberal.
Yo, is this just a justification for slavery? Is that what this is? It's just a justification because they were forced. Their labor was stolen from them. They stole money. That's the problem. Even if they were this is just justification for slavery. That's what I think he by accident just said, like, well, if you're fine with the sex acts, then why are you not okay with them being forced? Because consent is what makes it okay. It's like, if I go to a business and I consensually give my labor for money, that's fine. If I go to a business and they put a gun in my head and say, you must work for me, and they force me against my will, steal my labor, don't pay me, that's not fine. That's illegal. It has been illegal since 1865.
Liberal logic, wouldn't it be as harmful as being forced to breathe air or to eat a sandwich? But normal people, of course, recognize that being forced into sex is more of a violation than being forced to eat a sandwich. But that implies that the act of having sex is more significant, more sensitive, and potentially more damaging than other everyday activities. And that's exactly why Muslims are so cautious about it and have strict rules regulating it. Exactly the same rules that liberals criticize Islam for. So this is inconsistent. Another inconsistency, we are told that women...
I don't know how anybody finds this so convincing, man. I don't understand why anyone would be like, you know what? I thought Andrew Tate was guilty, but now that he talked about the sex sandwich, I think he's got me over. He's won me over.
Are strong and independent. But then when it comes to these sex cases, we are told that women are like children and that they're so easy to deceive and so easy to manipulate. So which is it? If it's so easy to deceive and manipulate women, then maybe we need to ban pornography entirely, ban fornication, and institute a male guardian system.
Ban fornication. Ban fornication. So because women were taken advantage of and sex trafficked, we need to ban fornication so there's no incentive to sex traffic whatsoever. As if banning of fornication would stop sex outside of marriage or the sex trafficking industry. And let me tell you, in a lot of Muslim countries, sex trafficking is a massive issue as well.
Can be fully protected at all times and can't be taken advantage of by the like.
Why should we be arresting Andrew Tate when for sex trafficking when we could be banning fornication? Well, it's just completely off topic.
Of Andrew Tate. Maybe the people who are so offended by Andrew Tate's business model can acknowledge that an Islamic system would completely shut down his whole operation before it even launched. This is because Islam offers objective standards for protecting people's rights as opposed to the subjective and highly politicized legal standards of the Western legal system.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening as well, Daniel. And
you know what he just did? He did the equivalent of being like, damn, we need to get rid of car accidents. Car accidents are disaster. Let's ban cars. That's what he just did.
folks, we're going to jump into the open conversation, but a quick housekeeping note. First, in particular, you can see at the bottom right of your screen, we are expanding onto TikTok. Once we get to 1,000 followers on TikTok, we'll be able to live stream our debates there as well, or at least the first hour of them. So want to say, if you have a TikTok account, please do follow us. I'll put that link in the live chat. It's also already in the description box. And with that, thank you very much, gentlemen. The floor is all yours for open dialogue.
Yeah, so to reiterate, I'm not here to debate Islam or Christianity or the morality of the West or anything. I don't know what any of that has to do with anything. My question is simply, is there enough, or I believe that the subject of the debate is there enough evidence out there that we could reasonably believe that in Romania, Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate, and the two Romanian national women that were arrested with him, one was one of his women and the other was a police officer. Is there enough evidence to convict them reasonably of sex trafficking in Romania based on what's released thus far? And I believe the answer to that is a resounding yes. I didn't hear you address any of that, although I heard a lot of stuff about MLK and the CIA and everything else, but we're talking Romania right now.
That all of the things that you can point to about his statements on videos, all of that is consistent with him being completely innocent.
He publicly said that he steals their money by lying to them about taxes, and he advocated for other people to do that. That is a crime. He admitted to that on camera. I don't know how he comes to that conclusion whatsoever.
Can you give me an example of, when I made statements about him on his website, when he's running a cam studio for nearly a decade, where he's girlfriends with over 50% of his employees. That doesn't
he had at some points over 70 girls working for them. You're saying 50% of those girls were his girlfriends?
Yes.
And they were not aware that they're all his girlfriends?
Correct, because he's made other statements to the concerning the one he calls his bottom bitch, that she would regularly downplay his relationships in order to lure other women in under the false pretense that they were something special to him. One of the leaked text messages that the prosecution leaked, he was talking to a girl saying that he wanted to marry her if she just moved to Romania with him.
All right, so we can go through all of those points step by step, but I just want you to acknowledge that these kinds of accusations can be used for political control against dissident figures like Julian Assange, like Martin Luther King. Is this something that you acknowledge that?
No, I won't. It's not relevant here unless you can provide me some evidence that.
So you don't think that MLK was pressured by the FBI?
I don't have an opinion on it because it's not relevant to this conversation. If you want to talk about MLK, we can.
You acknowledge the facts that happened.
I don't care. It's not relevant to this conversation.
It is relevant.
Not relevant
because the prosecutors in Romania are part of DyCOT, which is controlled by the Trafficking in Persons report established by the United States. And that DyCOT organization that you can read about on the State Department, U.S. State Department website, is deputized by the U.S. government to prosecute this case involving Andrew Tate. So it is highly relevant what the U.S.
It's not relevant unless you can prove that there's any suspicion of conspiracy. If you see like, hey, a document leak that showed this, or there was a meeting and some audio, like you gotta have evidence, not just like, did you know that Romanian police have this connection to American policing in this case? Okay, now show evidence that it's a conspiracy.
Government does in previous cases of these kinds of accusations.
Yep, I read the exact same Twitter thread that I know you're referencing, but no evidence has been given whatsoever that these charges are political in nature. If you have any evidence, I would love to hear it.
That's
but simply
context.
showing,
that's context.
no, that's not context. Simply showing that the United States is trying to work with other countries around the world to fight sex trafficking is not the big W that you think it is. Romania has traditionally had.
Many countries have complained about how the U.S. has authorized itself to be the police of the entire world, and they point out that it's extremely political how the U.S. uses these types of lists. So that
I'm going to ask again after there's
all of this is relevant because it is highly political. Like for you to claim that it's not a political situation, it's completely political.
None of it's relevant because they just need to be like, we're the victim. This is a prosecution campaign. Andrew Tate just can't be a piece of shit motherfucking cyber pimp. It has to be a conspiracy. It has to. And there's no evidence for conspiracy. But did you know the United States sometimes works with Romania on the issue of sex trafficking through this organization? That shows that there could be possible conspiracy existing, like it's physically possible. It's not relevant. It's not evidence of anything. He's trying to make it evidence. He's trying to make it context because he can't even admit that it's evidence. He has to admit that it isn't evidence. So he just calls it context. Like I could be like, for example, hey, did you see that this a reporter in South Korea died? Yeah. Did you know there's an American embassy in South Korea? Whoa, man, I didn't consider that. Did you know we have close ties in South Korea? Whoa, man, I never really thought about that. Maybe America killed him. Like, that's not enough. That's not even enough to get the conversation started. Like, this is a shit conspiracy. There's nothing.
The U.S. could care less about the position of Andrew Tate on social media and the messages that he puts out. Like, that is beyond belief.
I do think the government really does not care that much about Tate's social media posts. Certainly not enough to do this when there's reporters in the world that are actually exposing America's misdeeds and not just rambling about, ooh, the Matrix or just a general anti-establishment vibe.
Especially when we have the Twitter files showing that the FBI is literally involved in policing like random conservative Twitter accounts, like no-name 5-follower Twitter accounts on Twitter. Or like
if the FBI, let's say the FBI contacts Twitter, tells them to remove a Twitter account or something, even if I was to grant that and engaging in a multi-state international conspiracy to get Andrew Tate framed for sex trafficking and put him in prison so he stops influencing the kids on the TikTok is a totally different thing, in which there is no evidence to provide. There's no evidence supporting this.
Directing Twitter as a company to take down even these random conservative accounts, but they're somehow not concerned with Andrew Tate, someone who has the millions of followers and is the most Googled person on the internet.
Yeah, so I just want to point out for the audience. So what I'm trying to do is ask a very specific pointed question, and I'm going to return to it every time. And your goal is to ramble about irrelevant stuff because you have nothing on this topic. So I'm going to refocus on the same question again, and I'll see where you ramble off to. But my question is there any direct evidence that these charges for Andrew Tate are political in nature?
I don't see how you think it's irrelevant. Like, this is, first of all, there's a presumption of innocence with any kind of criminal prosecution. So you have to take into consideration potentials for the obstruction of justice, potential for violations of due process. That's all concerning the legal case.
Have there been any violations of due process?
Yeah, the ones that I described.
Which ones? What was a violation of due process?
There's no statute of limitations.
If the statute of limitations has been removed as part of the Romanian criminal code, how is that a violation of due process?
Statute of limitations are
by definition in Romania. That's not a violation of due process. You're wrong. You're just wrong. But go ahead. You can say whatever you want. Yeah.
There are certain human rights standards about due process.
There is no human rights standards saying that if 20 years pass, you can't prosecute for somebody for rape. That's not a standard internationally.
And statute of limitations is one of them. That's found in the U.S. legal system for a reason.
Yeah, it's the U.S. legal system, but this is Romania.
Andrew Tate specifically removed to Romania. You're telling me that the United Nations has made a formal statement saying that no country is allowed to remove a statute of limitations on any crime? Is that a statement that the UN has made?
No, you're misinterpreting what I'm saying.
I'm not. Hold on. Very clearly, what you're saying is that Romania not having a statute of limitations in regards to sex crimes is somehow a violation of some fundamental right. Now, you appealed to the United States, but what is I don't even remember the amendment. But that's the United States Criminal Code. We're not in the United States. Andrew Tate specifically moved to Romania in order to take advantage of the Romanian legal system. Hey, so the United States. Wait, hold on, real quick. So the United States criminal.
My answer to your question.
Well, because
he's going on to point two. It's not going.
If you're saying the UN has made
anything,
I'm because it's not my job to explain. I'm asking you a question. The original question, to recenter again, was: is there any evidence that any of these charges are political in nature? And you're rambling now about due process, as I said you would, because you will ramble because you have absolutely no evidence.
My opening statement had 3 points. Okay. Political control. So you want to disregard that?
Can I just say, yes, that is disregarded. This dude's getting rolled. I gotta be honest. This dude's getting absolutely rolled. It feels like he can't do anything to defend the actual actions of Andrew Tate in any way because it's a really bad case. So he has to shift to, well, it could all be a conspiracy. Do I have evidence? No, but it could be. Or he has to shift to Islam or just give anything but talking about the actual facts of the case, saying, well, actually Romania fundamentally is violating his human rights because they don't have a statute of limitations. What are you even talking about? This isn't even a topic in the media because this is not an issue. The UN does not believe that you have to have a statute of limitations for sex crimes. That's not a thing.
This case
I'm not disregarding it. I'm asking what evidence you have for it.
The evidence I gave you the evidence of the Twitter files and how the U.S. is highly concerned with social media personality.
The Twitter files and America being concerned about social media does not prove that we made Andrew Tate get arrested for sex trafficking. That does not prove that. It's not even evidence in the favor of it. Completely separate.
And are actively involved in trying to deplatform people on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. So that shows the political concern. I gave you historical examples of Martin Luther King, Julian Assange. Do you not think that those cases are political?
What do you
now? Let's also talk about the cases we're talking about here. MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., one of the most important civil rights leaders in American history. Crazily politically influential, had an impact on the Civil Rights Act, a bunch of stuff, right? Actively involved, making powerful speeches. Julian Assange leaked some very, very, very important government documents, has been hiding in an embassy for who knows how long, right? Before getting extradited. And now we're talking about Andrew Tate, a kickboxer and con artist and cyber pimp. He is not anywhere near the level of these people. The comparison, I think, is mute for that person, for that purpose, because the government would not risk this much in getting exposed in this way for something so consequential, for somebody so unconsequential.
They involve rape accusations of dissident political figures. And I just want you to acknowledge, which you refuse to do, that this case could also have political ramifications or a political context, but you want to deny that. So that's fine. So I moved to the legal aspect of it, which is violations of due process. I mentioned statute of limitations. This is a fundamental part of due process across many legal systems, including the U.S. legal system.
We're not in the U.S.
Which is the one that is policing human trafficking. As you mentioned, the U.S. is policing trafficking across the world. So do you think legal standards in the U.S. are relevant to that? And number two, The rape and fraud and coercion, exploitation, these are ill-defined and they're very subjective. That is also a violation of due process. Why? Because if you have a crime, it has to be very clear what the crime is. If you have this kind of blurred line between a legitimate webcam business, you know, what does a legitimate webcam business actually involve? What
Just
does
as a
it
note, you're
entail?
rambling again. I'm going to re-ask the same question. We go right back to the beginning.
Two, how is that distinguished from these standards of trafficking and rape that we find in Tate's case and in others?
Yep.
So that was the legal implications of this whole case.
Okay, gotcha. So evidence is not the government has done these things in the past, so therefore they're doing it now in the future. That's literally just a logical non sequitur. I don't want to use a debate term, but like it doesn't make sense to say that, well, if the government did something bad in the past, they must be doing it. Doesn't. They must be doing bad things in the future. For that, we need something called evidence. Now, I don't know if you know what evidence is or what evidence means, but evidence is typically going to be some collection of facts that point you towards, in some kind of concrete manner, of somebody doing something. Saying this happened in the past, therefore it's happening in the future, that wouldn't work in a court of law. It wouldn't work in an argument with a friend. It wouldn't work on a Reddit debate post. I don't know why you can cite. I don't know why you can cite. I don't know. Hold on, I let you ramble for like 5 minutes. Okay. I don't know why you can cite MLK. I don't know why you can cite people who died almost a century ago.
And again, people of much more prominence politically and influential, and actually cares about politics more than Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate doesn't really do anything. He doesn't like pass legislation. He doesn't like rally people to like get this law, but he doesn't do that. He just makes money. Because again, cyber pimp con man.
And say, well, since they did it there, they must have international pressure on other countries. Even if I did accept the MLK example, it's still quite dissimilar to the United States using international pressure to control another country's legal system. And by doing so, you're also like just hand waving all of the evidence that is out there relating to the charges that have been brought to Andrew Tate. Now, if you want to harp on this thing like due process isn't being met because there's no statute of limitations, you can't cite that anywhere. You know you can't cite that. The UN hasn't released a statement saying that countries aren't allowed to have no statute of limitations. That's not even an important part of due process. Due process just ensures that you have some engagement with the legal system that allows you some sort of like trial, some sort of representation, some sort of ability to plead your case in front of hopefully some dispassionate body that allows you to get an outcome that is fair. The idea that there's no statute of limitations around sex trafficking, I don't think is a substantial violation of a due process. It certainly isn't in the Romanian Criminal Code as of 2014. I can't find anything that bans that. And it certainly isn't the case that the UN has made any statements about that. So everything you're saying about that is complete and total nonsense. Unless you want to appeal to U.S. legal standards. But unfortunately, the Tate brothers specifically said they moved to Romania to take advantage of their legal system. So I don't know why you would cite U.S. legal precedents here. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, you keep going back to also this thing saying that, like, oh, the charges are vague.
Destiny going so hard, he knocked out my camera. He couldn't take it.
Like, oh, whatever. If you want, I can link you the 2014 Romanian Criminal Code. I sourced some of it for you. We can go through Article 210. We can look at what trafficking means. And, you know, we can read it down and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. I don't think that it's vague at all. I think it's pretty obvious. If you traffic in human persons, if you recruit, transport, transfer, harbor, or receive them from another person by means of coercion, abduction, deception, that means lying, and then you use that to sell pornographic material, that seems like it's sex trafficking. It's pretty obvious in Article 210 there. I don't think there's anything that's vague. Article 182 has more to do with exploitation, but yeah, if you want to have like an actual argument over the thing, it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad if you're just going to hand wave everything, saying, well, in the past these things happened, and everything is like very vague because you don't seem to engage with any of the facts of the matter, which I spent a lot of time unfortunately researching. So if you want to talk about any of the facts of the matter, be interested. But
if this keeps going, it's just gonna become bullying, and James is gonna have to step in from like stopping this guy's like windpipe from caving in.
Vague allusions to the Twitter files or MLK are not it. Yeah.
Like your internet sleuthing, like you're watching clips online, you're just taking evidence. Like what you call evidence is whatever is fed to you by Vice News and these different outlets, which are very opposed to Tate. They're very anti-Tate, who are putting selected clips out. And you've acknowledged this yourself.
No, I have not. That's a lie. That's a lie.
You have acknowledged this yourself that it's possible that these things that Andrew Tate himself says are not true. Like he's just playing a part. He's just playing a character. And if it's true, what he's saying, if it's true on these videos, then that would constitute sex trafficking. So you yourself have acknowledged this kind of plausible or reasonable doubt in your streams, multiple streams, your debate with Sneeko and so forth. But now you want to say that, no, you never said that. Fine, that's okay. The other thing that I want to point out is that all of the sex trafficking standards that you want to cite and take as irrefutable facts that no one has a problem with, there are plenty of people who have problems with these standards, and specifically the fact that the U.S. is the police of sex trafficking.
Again, this is all completely off topic. They should be talking about the facts of the case, but instead he wants to talk about, I don't like how America's so involved in the internet and trying to stop sex trafficking internationally. I think that they could have leveraged that to do a conspiracy. Do you have any evidence of that? Well, no. Well, then why are we talking about it? We're still talking about it. How far are we into this video? We are 28 minutes in. 28 minutes in. We're still on point 1, and he still can't accept that, like, there's no evidence for it, and I can't make the accusation if there's no evidence. He's running away, man. He's running away, trying to do anything but talking about the facts of the case and Andrew Tate's public admission of committing crimes.
And they use their TIP report, trafficking in persons report, to give different countries tiers, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And this is highly politicized. Countries like Malaysia have written reports that this is a violation of international laws to have the U.S. deputize itself to traffic other countries and put other countries on lists based on its own standards that it defines according to U.S. law, and then use that to penalize countries. Because if a country is put on a tier 3 sex trafficking list, that it hurts them economically, because a lot of businesses are not going to do business with tier 3 countries. So this is a political weapon that the U.S. has used. And if you want to look at citations for this, look at Anne Gallagher in her 2000 report, Improving the Effectiveness of the International Law of Human Trafficking, a Vision for the Future of U.S. Trafficking in Persons report in the Human Rights Review. And she says that this TIPS trafficking report from the U.S. has been criticized on a wide range of fronts. Quote, its very existence angers activists and governments alike who object to the USA appointing itself supervisor.
Again, let's be clear, not talking about the evidence of the case, not talking about Tate's public statements. We're just rambling about he's not happy that the United States is so involved in sex and trying to come down on sex trafficking internationally, that he thinks we're doing it wrong, and I assume this because his position is very anti-America. He's very anti-American in the way that he hates American culture. He hates Western values, right? So he's just kind of like hating on America, which, I mean, you can say he's right or wrong. I don't really care right now. It's not the topic of the discussion.
An arbiter of a complex international issue that remains both contested and controversial. So there is nothing, just settled about this idea of trafficking that you keep saying. This is an ignorance of this conversation around human trafficking, because this is a highly contested and controversial issue. What you want to hand wave and say that no, everything is settled, everyone knows what trafficking is. And I gave you examples. Like if someone says that, oh, I love you, let's have a relationship, but it turns out that they don't actually love the person. Is that fraud?
If they used that relationship that they promised you to bring you to another country and sell you as pornographic material, that would be sex trafficking, which is exactly what Andrew Tate did. So yes,
right, so
just curious.
Is that case?
Would you? No, it's not. It wouldn't be. No, we can look at. There's a whole bunch of. It doesn't. No, there's not. What is the exploitation? What is the exploitation there?
The definition of rape. I asked, is it rape?
You said there's exploitation there. What is the exploitation?
It's a lie. You've lied to
That's not exploitation. Article 182 in the Romanian Civil Code clearly states, it says, forcing persons into prostitution, pornography in view of obtaining and distributing pornographic material or any other types of sexual exploitation. That is what exploitation is defined as in Article 182 for the Romanian Criminal Code, which is referenced in Article 210 when we talk about trafficking for human persons. Here's a question. If Andrew Tate was Christian, would you be defending him?
Yep.
Okay, why did you even bring up the fact? Why did you bring up the fact that he was a Muslim?
Julian Assange.
Okay,
I defend Julian Assange.
So,
I made that statement just at the beginning, James, to make sure that it's clear that I disavow the pornography business as a Muslim.
Are we allowed to watch?
That's why it's relevant.
Are we allowed to play clips here that we can talk about a clip or no?
Sure.
Can I just say, pornography addiction, real issue. The practices of the porn industry, very bad. I am not a get rid of porn guy. I think porn is cool. Okay, I think it's pretty cool that we can access that so freely in our homes and explore our sexuality in that way in the privacy of within your own home. I think that's a cool thing that should be available for people to access if they so choose. I hate that I have to come out and defend porn, but considering who we're talking about here, I think you'd be pretty comfortable with a porn ban.
Works for me.
Okay. Do you want to So you brought up something.
I brought the example of rape because he is charged with rape. So if a woman lies to a man and says that, I've only slept, or I'm a virgin, and she sleeps with a man, is that rape because she lied?
No, I don't believe anybody's been prosecuted for that.
No, there have been cases of prosecution for lying to gain sex. For example,
no. Lying and saying you were a virgin? No, there have not been. Not in the United States. Maybe somewhere in the world, but not in the United States.
Okay, so what if someone says that, for example, I'm Jewish, okay, and has sex with a Jewish woman, and then it turns out he's a Palestinian, or he's non-Jewish?
I don't know what any of these have to do with this. We're talking about lying to somebody. It's not relevant.
Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about Jews and Palestinians banging? What does it have to do with Andrew Tate and whether or not he's a sex trafficker? He admits publicly that he's committed crimes in relation to sex trafficking. So being charged with that. Let's get to that topic.
Talking about lying to somebody.
Of rape
no, you're trying to play. You're trying to play some fuzzy around the edges thing to try to get me on a. Yeah, we're not talking about that.
Definition of fraud.
We're not talking about fraud.
And coercion are subjective. That's the point that I'm trying to emphasize.
They are somewhat subjective. That's why you go to court. That's why you have judges and juries that make rulings on these things. If you sit in front of a judge and you try to say, well, stealing is subjective, maybe they dropped it and I immediately picked it up and ran away with it, a judge is going to laugh at you and throw the book at you, obviously. We can't say that just because it's completely and totally impossibly difficult to figure one thing out or another, like on some rigid, like define the edges on every single thing, that means that there's no such thing as fraud or no such thing as coercion, right? Lying to somebody and saying, I was a virgin.
The definition of rape.
There is a definition
of rape.
We're not talking about rape. We're talking about sex trafficking right now. We're talking about sex trafficking.
One of the charges is rape.
We're not talking about that charge. I don't care about that charge.
Why are we not talking about that charge? You don't care about rape? You don't care about
when it comes to Andrew Tate, the big charge is the sex trafficking. That's what he's being charged with.
There's an overlap in the definition for trafficking and the definition for rape.
No, those are two distinct things.
Fraud and coercion. Both of their definitions involve fraud and coercion. That's why I'm talking about the subjectivity of fraud and coercion. That's how it's relevant.
Okay, can I use like a 2-minute talking? Can I use a 2-minute talking time and get Daniel's opinion on this? Oh, also, I want to push back on one other thing you said. You said that I'm showing clips from Vice, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the evidence I've gotten has come from Tate himself. I'm not relying on cut-up interviews from Vice or things republished from Vox or something. I'm just going by statements that Andrew and Tristan Tate have made. They've done plenty of podcasts. They've released plenty of material where they've spoken about what they do. If James will play it, here, we can listen to this 2 or 3 minute clip right here where he answers explicitly how he utilizes his bottom bitch, as he calls her, Vivian, in order to entrap other women, downplay their relationship, and then later use them for pornographic purposes. And then you can tell me if this sounds like a coercive or if this sounds like deception or not.
All right, but the thing is, I said that deception can be immoral, but it's not necessarily illegal.
No, not necessarily, but in the case where you use it to solicit...
That's the problem.
That's not the problem. That's not the problem. If you use it to lure a girl into a fake relationship and then force her to sell pornography and then steal from her, that's sex trafficking.
Yeah, you're using very charged terms.
Wait, hold on. It is not charged. It lures by saying, come here and I will marry you. It's stealing because he talks about how he will steal from them by faking their taxes.
How do you know that he, for any particular girl, didn't actually have the intention to marry her? Because he's
God, dude, the stretching. Now that we're back to the actual case, this is why I didn't want to talk about the actual facts of the case, because the stretching that's going on here, the stretching. Oh my goodness.
On different podcasts that he has multiple wives, or he's implied that he has multiple wives.
I don't think he's ever said that. I think he said he's had multiple girlfriends.
Look at Piers Morgan's interview where he admits, or he implies and suggests that he has multiple wives. Piers Morgan asks him, are you married? And he says maybe. And he says, do you have multiple wives? Something along that nature. And he implies that yes, he does. He implies that he has multiple wives.
Oh, okay. So then do you agree then that he should be punished in Romania because that's illegal in Romanian law? You can't have more than one wife at a time.
Oh my God! From the top rope through the table, from the top rope through the table. Table's on fire, covered in barbed wire. Not even close. Fatality. It's over. It's done. Tap out. Somebody tap out. James, throw him a buoy. Throw him a life raft.
Do you think he should go to jail for that? In Romania, bigamy, defined as marriage conducted by a person who's already married, is punishable by up to 2 years in prison or fine. Knowingly marrying a married person is punishable up to 1 year in prison or fine. I think this is illegal in a lot of countries.
If he did break the law, then I would say that he should go to prison for that. But our debate is about trafficking and rape, and you're using.
Yeah, but now you're making it worse for him. Is that not only is he a sex trafficker, where he's stealing their tax money, but now he's also breaking the law when it comes to marriage in Romania.
This kind of language,
Making
charged
it
language,
worse.
saying he's luring people for marriage, and he has shown that he's very interested in marriage. He potentially has multiple wives. We don't even.
That doesn't mean that
like,
he hasn't married every. Yeah. Oh, here, James, you can do your another ramble, and then we should just watch this like 2 or 3 minute clip. Like it's just such a clear outline of like how he's like his pimp model works. Like it's just very obvious.
Yeah.
Once you hit the
you can't even
green share button, if you want to click as well share audio, it'll have like a little checkbox.
Wait, I linked it in the chat on the right. I can't share because of weird things on my computer. So you got to do
I
it.
can't
Got it.
share either.
Let me open it up.
It's gonna like ruin the format on the stream.
What I'll do is I will play it. It's a little bit. Let me just hold it at the timestamp. In the meantime, as I set this up, folks, I want to remind you our guests are linked in the description. Highly encourage you to check them out if you haven't already. Hold on 2 seconds. I'm just going to pause this. 38:17. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll play this, and it'll be slightly potentially starting to actually delay on OBS. It's a
Maybe
little
you can
bit.
just play the audio.
You can just play the audio if you want, if that's possible.
It seems like whenever I play a video on YouTube on the same laptop that I'm using OBS, that's when it usually.
Crashes the stream.
Okay, let's skip through
I'm
it.
playing OBS too.
And then hold it up to the
Yeah, he kind of hints at. In that Pierce Morgan thing, I don't think he ever explicitly says that he was married. He kind of hints at it. But
hints
Andrew
at it.
Tate, yes, but Andrew Tate has explicitly said in the past in other interviews, and I'll link you this, he's stated multiple times that he will never get married. And I've listened to his brother talk about the same thing too, that if he ever got married, like he would give
people
all of
change.
his... He changed in like
became
like
Muslim.
6 months.
Yeah.
He became Muslim. What do you think about him still running casinos?
But when he was telling those women he was going to marry them, that was not when he was Muslim. That was before he was Muslim. So even if you want to make the argument in the last 6 months, now he actually has married multiple women. Let's say that's the case. When he was dragging them in years ago, he was not doing it with the intention to marry them. He was doing it with the intention of trying to use them to make money and steal their tax income through sex trafficking.
So his
Isn't that
close
one of the
friend,
largest
Tam
like
Khan,
sins
his
under?
close friend. Yeah, it is. I hope that he closes his casino business. And his
Okay,
best
so-
friend,
so
Tam
if he
Khan,
hasn't
has
closed-
indicated, don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt. His best friend Tam Khan has said that he intends to close those businesses. It's yet to be seen. If Andrew Tate does not close his casino businesses, then I, as a Muslim, would criticize him for that. I would say that's highly immoral, and I'd have no problem with that. Here's a question for you, Destiny.
Well,
If
hold
a
on, just
woman-
real quick on the. So he hasn't done that yet. So I don't know why you would assume he's changed. There's no reason to. Also, when he was luring these girls in the past,
say-
he wasn't a Muslim yet. He wasn't Islamic. So I don't know why you would assume he was.
That's Destiny.
He was bringing them
Yes.
to marry them like 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. If he just recently converted to Islam, none of that argument makes sense.
Well, we don't know if when he plays a role for his Hustlers University or for his social media, he's claiming to be a bachelor, but actually he is married. Like, we don't know that. But here's a question for you, Destiny. Is it, if a man gets a woman to work for her and give her money based on lies like, oh, I love you, or oh, I'm a virgin, is it sex trafficking?
If it's sexual in nature, yes.
So all of these, the whole cam business where you have women who are messaging men, oh, I love you, oh, send me money, oh, I need your money, or like the whole sugar daddy.
Yeah, that's actually what he's describing right now is what Andrew Tate did. He had these women pretend that they were going to go out and meet these men and drain them for tens of thousands of dollars. And he described how to do it in a horrific cycle, really disgusting stuff. Like, that is illegal too. That is illegal.
Business where a woman in college has these kinds of relationships where a man is paying her and she's reciprocating with sex based on, oh, I love you, you're my daddy, etc. This is all rape and trafficking according to you.
No, can you define it as such? How? I don't understand how camming. If somebody's paying for sexual services, that's not trafficking. That's you're paying for prostitution or paying for sexual services.
But it's based on the high amounts of money that are paid in a sugar daddy type of relationship.
Do you want to talk about
It's
sugar
based on
daddies, or do you want
lie.
to talk about camming? I don't know why we're bringing these.
It's an overlapping phenomenon.
It's not over.
because
These are two
girls-
completely distinctly different things.
Well, no,
I have the
cam
video.
girls are also cam girls also state that they love these clients, that they try to develop these kinds of parasitic relationships with them for the purpose of extracting more and more money from them. So do you think that's exploitative of a sexual nature?
If they're to make it trafficking, they would have to be soliciting sexual material from the men.
If a woman is genuinely lying about a guy, trying to pretend that they, like, telling them genuinely that they love them on the attempt of actually convincing them that, not just some like role play sound noises in bed or whatever, then I would actually say that it's exploitative, yes. But that's not sex trafficking. That's a separate but also bad thing, worse thing, I would say.
And then republishing it and then making money off of it. You could argue that it's a form of coercion or fraud. Sure. I don't know if anybody's been prosecuted for that.
Coercion or fraud, and it's of sexual nature. So those are the definitions that you brought up for.
No, trafficking requires the exploitation part. I can read the definition for you for a third part.
To lie to someone and then play with their emotions in order to extract money from them. That is exploitation.
No. I'm talking about exploitation insofar as it's defined in the Romanian criminal code, because that's what we're arguing about today, not whether or not girls exploit their sugar daddies. Article 182 clearly states that it's forcing persons into prostitution, pornography, in view of obtaining and distributing pornographic material or any other types of sexual exploitation. But that's what exploitation means. You consider forcing for Andrew Tate to tell someone that he loves them and to mislead them about his feelings for them. Correct.
You consider that part of exploitation. So I'm pointing out that women can also do that too, and it's actually something that's monetized into entire.
No, by the way, they can do that. It's bad, but like what we're talking about isn't like dirty talk. We're talking about actually trying to convince people that you love them. That is wrong if you do that. What you're doing is wrong. And if you like tell them, as Andrew Tate's girls have, that they're gonna come meet you in person, but they're lying. Say, no, I'll pay for a passport. I'm paying for a passport, but they're not. They're just putting money in Andrew Tate's pocket every time they get. That is illegal. That is illegal. Not only is that the same wrong, the same immoral action, but that's also illegal. So I don't think that we can just like. I don't think this is the same crime though. Like sex trafficking is still a different type of sexual crime, a different type of sexual immorality.
Industries like the sugar daddy industry, like the cam.
If Andrew Tate was just saying that to get girls to send him nudes, that would be different. But he's bringing the girls out, meaning he's transporting them, which is an important part of Article 210, and he's monetizing them, which is another important part of Article 210, I think subsection C, and he's stealing from them, which I think hits subsection B, which counts as a form of exploitation. He's literally stealing. He gives advice on how to steal from their taxes.
That is exploitation. So it's you have no problem with exploitation then if it's done by cam girls.
Exploitation is one measure of sex trafficking as laid out in the Romanian criminal code. If you want to have a separate debate on whether or not cam girls are exploitative, or on whether or not the CIA or the FBI killed MLK, hold on. If you want to talk about any of these other topics, we can, but I came here with a whole bunch of evidence and a whole bunch of information relating to Andrew Tate and whether or not the actions that he's admitted to on camera and that have been leaked by the prosecution and that have been claimed by other second and third party individuals constituted sex trafficking insofar as it's defined by the 2014 Romanian criminal code. I'm not here to talk about MLK, Julian Assange, past actions of the United States government, or weird conspiracy theories. So if you have information related to this, I would be super curious, but none of this is relevant. Talking about cam girls and
Wait, Destiny, but you haven't thought, the United States killed JFK, and they could be trying to line up a shot on Andrew Tate right now so they don't expose the Matrix. You don't know. You don't truly know. You don't truly know, do you, Soistany?
Sugar daddies has nothing to do with
this, but just because we have that video ready, I'm going to play it. This is Andrew Tate on the screen. I know that you can't see that, folks, because I'm playing it from the phone. So let me just turn this all the way up. Okay, here we go.
How do you manage hierarchies, let's say with two girls? Does the first girl have seniority over the second girl? No. Girls won't take that. If you have one girl who's clearly better than the other one, you're going to struggle massively. The second girl is just not going to stick around for very long. I've had it where I've had girls who say, oh, I know you're with Vivian. I know you've been with her a long time. I don't mind. I'll stay out tonight. You two stay alone. All that shit. But it never lasts long. Because the ones who are really in love with you won't do that. So the only girls who do that aren't really in love with you. You have to be such an imposing, dominating force that there's no room for hierarchy underneath you. You have to be like, when I say imposing and dominating, I'm not talking about being a psycho. I just mean your personality has to be so large that you're in charge of everything. There is no hierarchy. How can there be a hierarchy? You just have to be like, okay, I need a coffee. You make me a coffee and you cook me something. If you send one to make the coffee, then there's a hierarchy. Either way, if you send one to make the coffee, it can either be seen as you trust her more and want her more, or she's lower than the other one because she's a slave. Women will always just make up a reason. So it doesn't matter which one you choose, they'll decide it's negative. So you have to send them both. Go make me a coffee. Who? Both of you, go. You have to be like that. You have to be dominant to a point where there's no room for hierarchy. It's just you and everyone else. Now that's easy for my personality. For other people it can be slightly harder, but there's a whole bunch of stupid fiddly shit you need to learn to do if you want to truly have two girls in the long term. You got to learn to sleep on your back. You can't sleep on your side. If you sleep on your right side, I'm telling you now,
There's like 30 seconds left.
When you're sleeping,
and you talk to the Vivian girl.
Maybe not the first night, but by night 10 she will. And you're always facing her and you're hugging her and I'm on my own. And
By the way,
this is a little dumb shit you have to
Can
do.
I just say, like, this is just like some sick like when you listen to how he's saying how he's controls all these women, right? Is also pretty just I know it's not illegal, right, to date multiple people and like treat them in this way, but like this is pretty sick stuff too.
Deal with. But basically, you have to be big, large enough personality that you handle it. There is no hierarchy. You can't clearly have women below women. They don't like that shit. What you do when you're in my situation, where you have a girlfriend of 6 years, and you try and bring a new girl in, you actually have to downplay your relationship with the girl of 6 years, which is difficult. And I only get away with that because the girl of 6 years plays along. So Vivian's been with me 6 years. She's completely head over heels in love with me. She wants kids with me, everything. And we met and we felt whatever, we're in love. But when a new girl comes, she'll go, oh yeah, I started off working for him.
How long is this?
It's ending now, just as
We'll
this.
super downplay us so that the new girl feels like, well, they're just kind of work and sex. And now I'm here and he likes me. And she can believe in her mind that she can be equal. If you were if Vivian was completely honest, well, he's been with me 6 years and we're going to be together forever, so you're just a side bitch, then it's not going to ever work.
Yeah, so
Okay, yeah, you can end here.
Also depends how much control you have over your bottom bitch, because you have to be able to have
There's
her.
that pimp terminology, but yeah.
Any more?
So can I just respond to that without interruption?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, we have to distinguish between what is the standard practices within a cam business versus what is considered trafficking, because the kinds of things that he's describing in terms of managing women in a cam business, how do we know that that's just not the standard like best practices of managing a cam business?
It's not stealing the cam girl's money is not best practices, right? Dating all of your cam girls is not best practices. That's pimping. That's being a pimp. That is literally pimping, and the idea that like, oh yeah, they're my girls, they're my stuff, they're my property, they're all my girlfriends and stuff like that. That is pimping. He is describing pimping, not standard practices in the cam girl industry. That he's describing pimping.
In the same way that there's a veil between any kind of major company or major business and the employees. Anyone who's worked in the corporate world knows this, that you can't be 100% transparent with your employees. Like, for example, you can't let all of your employees know how much salary each person is making. Why? Because that creates all kinds of problems for the functionality of the team. So management typically, like if you work in corporate America, the management is not going to disclose what each employee is making. And if you ask, they won't tell you, or they are allowed to mislead you about that. There's all kinds of best practices for keeping your employees happy and motivated to work. And some of that will involve deception as a part of best.
Not stealing their money. Not stealing their money and lying to them about taxes. That's just fraud. That's theft.
Practices that are taught in managerial schools and MBA programs within standard business. The only thing that's different about a cam business from a purely
Speaking of theft, wage theft, and stealing money, if you've been watching tonight's stream and you've been enjoying either the analysis about the weapons deliveries earlier or watching this debate, I would appreciate any donos, subs made on Twitch chat or site chat. Site chat, of course, is preferred because if you donate on site chat or sub on site chat, all the money goes to me and my editors and none of it goes to Jeff Bezos. And if you got any Twitch Primes, you can drop that and that doesn't cost you a dime. And those are very helpful to the channel. Any of that is very helpful. And or if you want to do something more bi-monthly, you can always support me on Patreon, DylanBurnsTV. Any support is greatly appreciated. I gotta shill more. My editor's gonna kill me if I don't.
Western materialistic perspective is that you're dealing with sex, and that will involve emotions, and that will involve a kind of relationships that makes it more tricky and more complicated and potentially more damaging. I acknowledge that, which is why I think that pornography should be banned, because I don't think it's just Andrew Tate in his particular webcam business that is employing these practices. I think these are standard practices for any kind of pornography business and webcam business. And if you want to consider that exploitative and trafficking, fine, but that means you'd have to ban all of pornography, all of webcamming. Just be consistent with your standards. Don't have this attack on Andrew Tate and say, oh, see, he's using this kind of dishonesty, or he is veiling his true intentions just for the purposes of manipulation. Don't have that kind of standard for Andrew Tate, when in reality, these are practices, best practices for all of pornography. Anything that involves that level of sex and money together is going to be complicated in that kind of way. And I keep bringing up exploitation that women use in these same industries against men to exploit men. And Destiny seems to think that that kind of exploitation, there's no problem. It can be legal. Yeah, it's fine if the women are lying.
But to be clear, I don't think Destiny said it's okay for women to lie to clients during sex work, as in like, oh, I'm gonna come and meet you and stuff that, by the way, Andrew Tate has encouraged his sex workers to do, to lie and commit fraud by saying that they are gonna come to where they live and they're gonna meet up, say that they need money for a passport, they're not buying a passport, need money for a plane ticket, they don't need money for a plane ticket, they're not buying a plane ticket. That's fraud. That's wrong, and it is illegal. But also, you can do stuff that is lying and sex talk on like camgirl websites that is still wrong. Like if you tell somebody you legitimately love them and it's not just talk that they asked for, then yes, I do think that's wrong. And I don't think Destiny endorsed that or anything, but this is an unrelated topic.
In order to extract money from men, to defraud men essentially through dishonesty, there's no problem. That should be legal according to Destiny. But if a man does it, then that's a problem and he needs to be put in prison for 10 years.
Yeah, I don't know why you keep trying to say what I think should be legal or not in regards to women exploiting men. That's not what we came here to discuss. I haven't entered any statements about that. You have no idea. I don't care what you think my opinion is. If you want to talk to me on another time or in another debate, we can go over that. But that's not part of this discussion, so I'm not here to answer that question. When you say that it's standard practice, can you think of a single other pornographic studio in the world that manages their talent this way?
I imagine that it's.
I don't care what you imagine. Okay, so it's not most of them. Women on Pornhub are individually.
How do you know?
Because I'll tell you. The women that do OnlyFans aren't managed in this way. You can be an independent creator. You don't have to move anywhere. The women that work on Pornhub are all independently managed. For larger companies and studios like Brazzers and other people that manage talent, you never fly them around the world and keep them locked up anywhere. For the girls that work on My Free Cams, they're only.
Where's your proof?
My proof is
How do you know those companies don't do that? How do you know
because one, I know people.
You know Pornhub was investigated for child pornography and all kinds of.
Okay, let's be clear. What he's saying right now is a diversion. What Destiny just said about these companies is undeniably true. And now he's saying, oh, Pornhub doesn't ship out people to live in these countries forcefully and keep them constrained. Well, did you hear about this separate scandal that had to do with child porn on the website? Yeah, that's terrible. But that's unrelated to what Destiny just said and is not sex trafficking. It's a separate issue of people posting inappropriate and horrible content on the platform, independent of Pornhub's management and problems with moderation. Totally separate issue.
Illegal practices, and they're demonetized. Their payment processors closed them down. It was a huge scandal. Pornhub was involved in all kinds of criminality.
What do you think Pornhub was involved in? What do you think Pornhub was involved with?
They were involved with child, having videos of child pornography.
Yeah, how were they
involved
with
not taking
that?
it down.
There you
not
go.
Taking those
so Pornhub themselves did not produce any of that, right? Whether it's criminality or not,
they're profiting off of it.
That's up to not anymore. That's why they have very stringent application things. Also, for the audience, notice how you just pivoted again to something completely irrelevant. The reality is that there is no. I brought up Pornhub as an example of a place
of a great
where
model of pornography,
where an individual
ethical model of pornography. That was what you brought up.
Hold on, just to be sure they can hear each of you.
I know you're really triggered about porn. If you want to do a porn debate, we could have just done a porn debate, but I'm not here to do a porn debate. I'm here to do a sex trafficking debate. You made the argument that this was standard practice. I know from personal experience it's not standard practice, and I know from every woman that has ever spoken being in these industries it's not standard practice, but you are right in a way, you just don't realize how you're correct. in a way, what he's doing is standard practice. It is incredibly standard practice for pimping. And if you watch any interviews with a pimp, if you watch the terminology that Andrew Tate uses, if you see the entire guide that he had on his Cobra PhD website that's now taken down, that I've linked you an internet archive of, if you read any of the statements there, that is a guide on how to pimp. Terminology that he uses like bottom bitch, the idea of bringing in one woman to lure another woman in to work for you, the idea of having women that think that they're part of a relationship with you and then moving them to another country to do sex trafficking, all of that is standard practice, but it's standard practice for pimping. So you don't have any examples of any studios anywhere that do their sex content like this, despite you saying it's standard practice and that you imagine it so. I don't know why you're imagining about porn. That sounds like it would be haram or something. But yeah, the idea that this is standard practice, you can't think of anybody that does it. I know that that's not true. I just named you like 3 or 4 different organizations that have women that do this that aren't managed in that way. Oof. And everything you're saying is standard practice, but it's standard practice in regards to pimping.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it funny how you mentioned like 2 main companies, and one of them, Pornhub, was involved in a major scandal violation.
Terrible, but completely separate to what Destiny just talked about.
Of ethics.
It had
and law.
nothing to do with sex trafficking.
Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt. Also, there are many people. There are many people who complain about being exploited by Pornhub. You can just Google it. I was exploited by Pornhub, and these are quote unquote independent creators. Like just Google someone like Mia Khalifa, who says that I was exploited by Pornhub. So there's plenty of testimony from these former porn actresses who say that I was exploited by these companies.
Did any of them say that they were moved to another country and forced to work in a basement? Or
they said they were exploited. They said that they were coerced. They said that they didn't know, they were preyed upon by these companies.
Preyed upon or coerced how?
All of those statements. Ask them. They're saying that they were.
Well, you're the one citing them, so I'm asking you.
They were promised all kinds of celebrity status and all kinds of riches. They were lured into the pornographic industry at a young age, at 18 years old, and they didn't know better. And they are arguing that these companies are all exploitative.
Okay. So we just have nothing on Andrew Tate. Do you think that sex trafficking is even real? Is that like a real crime ever?
Yeah, it's real. If you go grab someone off the street and you put them in a truck and you drive them to Mexico and you sell them into sex slavery where they're chained to a radiator, yeah, that's human trafficking. But offering someone a position
so he doesn't believe coercion can be used to do sex trafficking, which it absolutely can. They absolutely can. What Andrew Tate did, and Destiny talks about this all the time, it's the lover boy method. Yes, you can use things outside of physical violence when first trying to introduce somebody into sex trafficking.
A lucrative business. I think it's haram. I think it's completely immoral. I disavow girl business or pornography. But according to Western law, that's not considered human trafficking. That's not illegal. It's only when you start broadening the definition of what constitutes fraud and what constitutes coercion. Like, oh, you said that you would marry her, but you didn't marry her, so therefore you sex trafficked her. Like, this is the kind of evidence, quote unquote, that you have against Andrew Tate.
Well, no, my evidence is him giving a guide. We can watch another clip if you want about how he talks about how he scams.
He's giving a guide about his cam business. Like, that's standard practice for
standard practice for pimping. What you said earlier was not true.
Is pornography not pimping?
No.
Is pornography not pimping?
Because you're not lying or deceiving or coercing the women into it. If you are, then it could be a form of pimping. But
honest pimps.
Saying that there can be honest pimps, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And thankfully, even in the Romanian criminal code, even if somebody that you have pimped has said you're not pimping, that has no impact on whether or not you get charged with sex trafficking or not. You said earlier that it was standard practice. You said it was standard practice in business to deceive or lie to your employees or to lie about other things. That's not standard practice in business either.
There's a veil of dishonesty.
There is not a veil of dishonesty. That's not true. And depending on how you lie, you can get prosecuted for that. I don't know what you mean by veil of dishonesty. And whatever veil of dishonesty you think you can come up with, by the way, if you were to fire an employee for discussing wages with another employee, pretty sure you can get you can get in big trouble for that. If you want to talk about like a veil of dishonesty, that's fine that maybe they aren't completely forthcoming with some things, but that's far different than saying that I bring a woman intentionally to deceive the other woman in order to get her to work a sex business for me. I don't know I don't know what world you can live in where you listen to him say that.
These women are coming to first of all, Andrew Tate is inviting them to come to Romania. They don't know who Andrew Tate is. They don't know that he's a multimillionaire. They don't know how he's got his money. They don't know his involvement with other women because he's posting about it constantly on his social media. They go to Romania, they see a house with 70 women, and they don't realize, oh, I wonder what's going on here. What is this? Oh my God, I'm completely surprised surprise. You fooled me, Andrew, about the nature of your living and how you live your life. Like, that's the kind of naivete that you think that women
No, it's
have.
not naivete at all.
They're like childlike,
No.
Ignorant, naive. They can't even make these kinds of basic conclusions that any normal person would immediately be able to understand. And anyway, when they get to Romania, they can leave. He's not chaining them up. He's not locking them up. You could say that, oh, he took their passport. Okay, just go out in the street. You don't know the language, so what? Just you're a beautiful young woman. Say, oh, help me, help me. You don't think people in Romania care enough to help someone who's asking for their help and screaming that, oh.
You could say this about domestic abuse victims, by the way. Like, just go get a cop if you're being beaten. Like, the psychological state when somebody's being sex trafficked or an abusive relationship, definitely one that is the lover boy method, where Andrew Tate's trying to fool them into thinking that he loves them when he doesn't. He doesn't care about them. That, like, he's not putting any of this into consideration. He's just trying to paint it like it's so just jump out. It'd be so easy for you to expose and destroy Andrew Tate.
Oh, I'm being held against my will. Please help me. Like, this is just so implausible. Like, this kind of
so none of this is implausible. So when you say that, like, they just show up and they see 70 women, that's not how it works. Who they're allowed to see, where they're allowed to go, who they're allowed to hang out with is all incredibly carefully controlled for. We know this because there were logs leaked by the prosecution that shows Andrew Tate talking to Vivian, telling her, like, hey, show this girl to this place, take this girl to this area. We know this because in Tristan's God Mode podcast, he talks about how you can have 5, 6, 7, and 8 different women at the same time by scheduling different times of the day to be with them, so that every single one of them feels like they're special and unique to you. He's got a whole podcast. We watched the entire thing where he gives tips on how to manage multiple women at the same time. And we know that there were explicit threats made that if women weren't making enough money for them, one was Andrew Tate saying that that somebody would be thrown out the window. Another claim was another woman tried to leave and they said, you're not allowed to leave this place ever unless you go with either Vivian or one of the 2 security that are here. So no, women were forced to be there. We've got a third party. I can't verify that, but a third party.
That force? Where was the force? All you mentioned is like deception. All you mentioned
the force is somebody saying that the force is that you're not allowed to leave the house, or else we're gonna throw you out of the balcony. Or the force is that, like, you.
Where's that? Where's the proof of that? Where did Andrew Tate say you're not allowed to leave the house? Otherwise, we're gonna throw you off the balcony. That's like a threat of assault and possibly homicide.
Sure. So in one of the, hold on, I can find the balcony quote if you want.
This guy's really just doing backflips to it really does, I gotta say, it does feel to some extent religiously motivated. I don't know why else he would have opened with religion.
So while you're looking for that, you can look at thedailybeast.com, sexual coercion epidemic in porn, exploitation, coercion.
What does any of this have to do with what we're talking about?
Yeah, what does an article about porn have to do with the cam business?
We're not talking about porn, and we're not talking about the cam business.
We're not talking about porn at all.
No, we're not. We're not talking about the cam business either. We're talking about Andrew Tate and sex trafficking. So here was one of the conversations that were recorded. This has to do with the policewoman that was arrested alongside the Tate brothers, and it has to do with another woman that was doing work for them. Let's see. RL is the policewoman. You're free tonight to sleep. Do not waste time, so that you can be rested for tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday for the weekend. The other woman, not the victim, but another one of the pimp helpers, is so clearly there is no longer a problem with recovery. And then the victim says, "You mean? But I didn't say I'm not going in today at all." And then the policewoman says, "Well, how much do you have to recover so far? Don't lie to me because you didn't do anything today." And then Andrew Tate says, "Did you tell the new hooker that you made a lot of money?" The second part of this conversation is they talk about.
Is this from a video or?
These are logs that have been released from the prosecution. I can go ahead and link you this right here if you want.
Yeah, so logs are not these kinds of logs are highly selective. We have to.
When he used the word hooker, I'm sure he meant like she's a fisherman, as in she likes to hook the fish and reel it. Dude, he's like on so many levels of copium. I don't even know. Like he is in another state. I have to think he's like in another universe. He's high on shrooms. I don't know what's going on.
To see the entire context of the conversations that are happening. You can't just take a quote from a WhatsApp message and say that, oh, this is evidence that he is threatening assault. And
okay, so when he says, so one of the statements by the police ladies was, "Punch yourself in the mouth until I arrive, because then I'll give you another 10, you incurable slacker. I'm gonna break you when I get there." The victim says, "What did I do?" She says, "You have 1 hour and 10 minutes to disappear." But what did I do? Better said, "What did you do yesterday for an hour? You're 20% down, 4 days since you posted." And then another lady says, "I'm waiting for the money from yesterday." And then the police lady says, "If Andrew looks to see if you've posted TikToks, you won't have time to pack. You're flying off the balcony straight away."
So the policewoman said that?
Yes.
So Andrew Tate did not say that.
They're all part of
They work for him. He doesn't know anything about the case. One of the people who is in jail right now is a policewoman who worked with them in this.
the same criminal enterprise. Yes, the
policewoman
policewoman
is
that
part
works.
of the-
He doesn't know the basics about the case. She has been arrested with Andrew Tate because the woman was working with him, because Andrew Tate, like he said when he was talking about moving to Romania, likes to take advantage of corruption in Romania. He's been open about this, that he likes to bribe people, that he loves corruption, right? That he was moving to Romania because it has a corruption problem and because he thinks he could take advantage of the legal system. And this is an example of this policewoman who worked with him.
Criminal enterprise?
You
You're quoting the policewoman. The policewoman said you better pack up, otherwise he's gonna throw you off the balcony.
Oh, you don't know anything about this case at all. Policewoman is one of the people arrested. You don't even know who was arrested with Andrew Tate. You have no idea what you're talking about. Holy shit. I just realized that. Fuck.
I can't even tell if you're talking about the police, a police report, or what.
Never mind.
You're just
Fucking
reading a
clueless.
line. I
You've
don't know what
lost.
it's from.
You asked me to read the logs.
This is why we're not talking about Andrew Tate. It's because he knows nothing about the case.
This
But
is
I
proof.
just realized you don't even know who was arrested with the person.
I asked you to
Never
show
mind.
me the
I'm good.
proof. Of
I did show you the proof. I literally linked you the
You
things
said
right
that
here.
policewoman said it, not Andrew Tate.
No, they're all part of the same criminal enterprise, though. That's part of what they're being charged for. Was the
I thought our
criminal
debate was about
organization?
Andrew Tate, right?
Yeah, but they work for Andrew Tate. If I had, I pay somebody to go murder someone. I didn't do it. I guess I shouldn't go to prison. Do you not see the problem? Oh my.
That's what you keep referring to. We're talking about
The
Andrew
debate
Tate.
is about Andrew Tate and sex trafficking.
Okay.
Sex trafficking. Sex trafficking typically requires an organization to do it. This is Andrew Tate's organization. There are other logs that show the hierarchy of said organization and how these women report to Andrew Tate. We can go over those logs as well, but I don't think you're familiar with any of these things.
No, all you're doing is citing. I don't know where these documents are coming from.
They're
where these
logs
messages
leaked,
are
chat
coming
logs
from.
leaked from the prosecution.
Yeah, the prosecution. Wow, I wonder, if they're giving the entirety of these messages, entirety of these statements that are being made. How can you take what the prosecution selectively decides to leak as evidence, close-cut case that Andrew Tate is threatening his girl to throw girls off of balconies if they don't?
Because I'm combining it with everything else I've heard so far. I'm combining it with Andrew and Tristan's own testimony.
Everything I've heard. I'm combining it with everything I've heard thus far, and it's not evidence. It's not compelling to me that this is proof that he is engaged in any
I
kind
agree.
of
It's not
coercion.
100% compelling. That's why we wait for the trial. But based on everything that's been released so far, seems pretty
then we
bad.
agree.
No,
agree
we
then. That
absolutely
doesn't-
don't agree. You don't even know the facts of the case. We
Yeah,
can't
I do.
possibly agree.
You don't even know how the U.S. is involved in this case.
You haven't been able to tell me either. All you're saying
Yes,
is that
I
the United
have.
States funds organizations that fight sex trafficking abroad? Yeah, no shit, Sherlock
No.
Holmes. That's the most
No.
obvious thing in the world. Like, yeah,
United
duh.
States funds the Organized Crime and Terrorism Investigation Directorate in Romania.
Okay,
US
so then
government-
let me
that's
return to the
that's
very.
body-
This
that's
was
the body
this was the
that's
very, very, very
prosecuting
first
Andrew Tate.
question.
You don't even know this.
Yeah.
You're not even aware of
I
this
do.
whole
I
context.
literally.
You think it's irrelevant.
If you
So
want,
you said earlier.
Do you see what he's doing now? He's like, he got showed to know nothing about the case. So he's pivoting to something unrelated to the case. And I'm trying to say that the thing that's unrelated to the case that Destiny does not know shows that he doesn't know anything. He was shown to be foolish and not know all the information surrounding the case, even though he's, again, on a show debating the case. And he was shown to be a fool. So now he's trying to 180 it, but it's not really working. God, this is honestly like an embarrassing performance on his part.
yeah.
That this is completely irrelevant, that the U.S. is involved, that there's no political considerations to be taken into account here. That's like your worldview, that is so naive. Don't tell me about not knowing the facts of the case.
So
you don't even know who's prosecuting.
By the
Andrew
way,
Tate.
here you go. There's the Twitter thread. I know exactly where you're pulling this conspiracy from. I've read the entire thread.
It's not
There is
conspiracy.
no.
Go
There
to
is
Oh, wow. Big surprise. Michael Tracy, huh?
no
State.gov,
evidence.
State.gov
Yeah,
/report
I know how excited you are.
2021.
Yes.
What kind of conspiracy
I know how you-
theory is this when I'm
The
citing the government
conspiracy that
website?
you're alleging
US
is that
government.
the
What
conspiracy.
conspiracy theory?
I'm telling
One
you.
sec, gentlemen,
You
just to
think,
be sure we can
you
hear
think
each
it's a
of
conspiracy that the U.S. is involved with DCOT?
No, but that's not what you're alleging. You're alleging the conspiracy that you're alleging is that the United States is pressuring DICOT to trump up charges for Andrew Tate that have no factual basis. And so what I'm
saying
asking
that this
you
is the context.
is there a single
say that this is what the US
single
is-
piece of evidence that points to any political pressure that's causing them to fabricate evidence? That was the very first question I asked, and you
evidence.
talked about 50 million things. I can go back to the very first question again, and we'll do this again. We can play this till the end of the debate. Is there a single piece of direct evidence that the United States is pressuring anybody?
Look, just like you can point to these selected WhatsApp messages and and
These
say,
are
well, it's
hours-long podcasts
it's
by
highly
Andrew and Tristan
suggestive.
Tate. Yeah.
Hold on, let me finish. Oh, well, that's highly suggestive. I'm also saying, look at the U.S. Involvement with this Romanian prosecution. Well, that's highly suggestive. Look at the U.S. Previous history in trying to push false rape accusations against people like Martin Luther King, against people like Julian Assange. Well, that's kind of suggestive. I'm only using your same logic, Destiny, your same kind of curiosity where you say, oh, wow, Andrew Tate said this and that. That's highly suggestive that he's a sex trafficker. I'm using only the same logic. If you want to call that a conspiracy theory, then you're engaged in just as much conspiracy theory as I am.
Yeah, so just to be clear, I'm using direct logs and testimony from Andrew Tate. I'm using like cutouts from hours-long podcasts that we've all listened to. You're welcome to go and do it if you want.
And none of that
and
is
all of this is him speaking. We literally just listened to him lay out almost everything necessary on its own to prove that he was a sex trafficker. He's literally describing a pimp relationship with a girl that works for him and how he would use deception in order to get other women to think they were closer to him than they actually were. We literally just listened to a full cutout that was not edited, that wasn't from Vice. That was something that Andrew Tate himself recorded and spoke about. So if you're upset about that, that's fine. But if you're going to make claims about conspiracies about the U.S., like pressuring people to do anything, that's fine too. But you need to show me evidence for it. If you don't have any evidence other than the United States works with Eastern European countries to try to reduce the amount of sex trafficking, when these countries are well known as having massive problems with sex trafficking, you're going to have to do a little bit better.
Look, if you are telling us that we just need to trust what Tate says in these logs, and we just have to take Tate's word for it of what he's describing of his relationships, of his business practices, fine. Well, let's take Tate at his word. Guess what? In many places, Tate also says that he is playing a character, that he is just putting on a persona for the sake of selling his business and selling this kind of lifestyle, that he is role playing. He says this in multiple interviews, including most recently on Piers Morgan. He describes his entire activity online as a performance. So if we want to take Tate as his word and convict or impeach him on his word, then these are also things that Andrew Tate has said publicly. So this is the weakness of your case, Destiny. Like, you're just taking what Tate has said in all of these videos. Yeah, I've seen them all as well. Everyone's seen them. But the point is that, fine, that is not enough to prove, as you've acknowledged yourself, that's not enough to prove that he engaged in sex trafficking. And in any court of law, there's a presumption of innocence. There has to be he has to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But there's plenty of doubt that's created by all of these contextual factors that I'm bringing up. And all you have is, oh, listen to this video. Oh, look at this selected snippet from a WhatsApp log. That's the only thing that you have. Fine, I'll concede everything that you have pointed to Tate's videos, his WhatsApp messages. Fine, let's pretend like those are all in context. They're incontrovertible. There's no kind of manipulation of that data. Let's take it at its face value. It still does not prove that Andrew Tate is a sex trafficker because he says publicly that he's playing a role.
Gotta say, the idea that he's playing a role, like if I went on stream and I was like, hey guys, I committed a war crime. I went over there and I shot a Russian as a journalist. I pretended to be a journalist and I killed them. Let's say I said that on stream. And I was being 100% serious. I was making my followers believe I was serious when I was saying it. Like, you can try to make the argument that I was faking that it was all just a meme. And maybe that is at the end of the day. But if that is the case with Andrew Tate, which I highly doubt, but let's say that is the case with Andrew Tate, then everybody believing he's a sex trafficker is nobody's fault but his own, including the Romanian government.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, I can just restate everything. You can say it's all parody or whatever, but I mean, he did grow that huge webcam business. He does give full, before he was ever an internet content creator, he gave full videos explaining how his entire business works. He spoke multiple times about moving to Romania in order to avoid certain types of laws that he seems to be trying to exploit now to run his business. Every single piece of evidence seems to point in one direction for Andrew Tate. And if you want to turn a blind eye because you're happy to have a new convert, I mean, that's fine. But nothing you've really said today has given me any factual basis to believe anything that I've said is incorrect.
Destiny said it in the most blunt way possible, but it does kind of feel like that.
And it seems like you have nothing insofar as that other than alluding to vague conspiracy theories or black guys have been dead for over 100 years or whatever, or 80 years. So Yeah,
That's Martin Luther King is some black guy that died 100 years ago.
So I guess 6 years ago. But yeah, I don't think MLK is connected to the Andrew Tate sex trafficking case today as much as you might want him to be. But yeah,
or Julian
unless,
Assange, that's irrelevant.
If there's any other evidence, although I don't think it has.
Do you think
absolutely?
Yes,
it is irrelevant.
Discuss
it's irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant.
That's fine. So
This
the
might
thing is
be
that
an opportunity to go into the Q&A, unless you have any final thoughts to draw together the threads from the debate.
Okay, they still have like 10 minutes left, so we'll finish the debate. I'm not watching the Q&A. This debate was so hollow on his side and trying to put up a defense for Andrew Tate. It's not even worth it. It's not even worth watching the Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I made my case. Like all the evidence that Destiny claims to have are just statements from Tate that are highly
direct evidence.
Hey, dude, direct statements. I murder people, everyone. And then behind them, there's like a meat factory as you see bodies falling out. Like he runs the business and he says he runs it in a certain way. Like, I mean, it's like case closed.
Look, that's direct evidence when he says he's playing a role, that he's doing a parody. That
he's not playing a role in those videos. That's not him playing a role. That's him talking explicitly about how his business works, and other people have come out and said as much. The leaked logs from the prosecution seem to say as much. Statements from the victim seem to say as much. Other things that have been released from other people that aren't even involved in this seem to say as much. There's a 16-year-old girl who was the daughter of a Romanian politician that said that Andrew and Tristan Tate are shooting out spam messages to girls on Instagram, trying to get them to come and work for them. Like the idea that like none of this stuff is like, oh, well, maybe he's all just playing a character when his entire life has consistently led to this moment, and now he's gotten arrested and is being prosecuted potentially by the Romanian government for sex trafficking is just hilarious that you would buy all of that. Like, oh, he's playing a character. Isn't that exactly something that a criminal that's an
Hitler was just super into method acting. Okay, he was like all of you have no proof that it wasn't all like a big method acting, like trying to get into the role for like Mein Kampf 2. You have no clue. Yeah, I mean, can we prove it? Can we prove it? Like at a certain point, we're seeing his actions impact the world. We're seeing his view of women and his view of how he should treat women impact the world and how he ran his business, and he describes how he runs his business. If this is acting, it doesn't really make much sense because he also has a business to back up these things he's saying. It'd be like if I said, hey guys, I'm smuggling weapons, and then you look into it and have a weapons company that's shipping weapons to Syria of some country, or like countries around the world, and it was like, well, now that they've been arrested, what I really meant, but when I meant smuggling is I meant dealing fairly. That was actually a character I played up for stream. Nobody would buy that, rightfully.
Online social media influencers would say. Why would you not be critical of that statement at all?
Before the charges, he said that before these charges.
Did he say it before the investigation?
He says that.
He said that after he got banned from social media. Don't you think he might have just said that so that he could get unbanned from social media?
No, in older clips, he says the same thing. In older clips, he says that he's playing a character. Like this was the whole issue with the UK case where he was accused of beating a woman, and that video came out that he's hitting a woman, and he explains that he's just role playing. So this is prior to the sex trafficking. That's prior to the sex trafficking, and the police dropped the charges based on text messages between the women who were accusing Tate, showing that they were colluding to actually attack him.
Yeah, so that is hold on. So that is not true. So the text messages or the accusation that they were trying to collude to make up a charge is something that Andrew and Tristan Tate say, but that has never been substantiated. The statement given by...
What has been substantiated is that the case was dropped.
Sure, the case was dropped.
There were no charges. He was not arrested for that.
Yeah, that is true. That the case was indeed dropped, but it doesn't mean that there was collusion among those girls to fabricate charges against him. Plenty of cases like this get dropped.
I acknowledge that it was a claim.
Sure.
I acknowledge that.
I mean, like every single statement that the Tates have made seem to point consistently in this direction. I mean,
you're ignoring a lot of their statements. I'm
ignoring the statements where they're saying like, oh, don't take us seriously for everything, which is the childlike naivety that you have, or the desire to, I guess, ride these guys is hilarious, because like the idea like, well, he said that he didn't mean it, when they've got hours of content, hundreds of hours of content, thousands of dollars in courses, when they've got all these things that are set up in terms of like how to run your own pimping or trafficking business, and everything they seem to say, it's like seems to line up with that.
Right? Yeah. You read the report, right, Destiny, from the prosecution. Did you also read the judge's report where he said that there's not enough evidence to actually charge and prosecute Tate, or indict and prosecute Tate? Did you read the judge's statement about that? And that's why his detention was extended for another 30 days as the prosecution looks for more evidence. So if it's such a clear-cut case and all of his statements are basically incriminating him online, there's hours of evidence, then why is the prosecution not going to trial? Why do they keep extending?
Hold on, you said there's a statement from the judge saying there's not enough evidence for a case right now. Can you link me that?
Yeah. Let me pull it up.
Also, how do you know he's not just role-playing being Muslim? How do you know he's serious about that?
I mean, you really can't tell what is in a person's heart. So you have to take people at the face value, what they say.
Unless they say, hello, I'm sex trafficking, then you can take them at face value. Then it's an act.
Publicly. So he said publicly that he's playing a role. And I take that as at face value, just like you take his other statements at face value.
Okay, but how do you know that he's really a Muslim then?
Really a Muslim? You can't know anyone is really a Muslim. You can't know if I'm really a Muslim. How can you know what's in my heart? And
well, you seem to defend him a little bit on the basis, at least, that you were happy that you want to defend a Muslim brother. You said that at the beginning of this conversation.
But even if he were not a Muslim, I would defend him.
Sure, but you said in the beginning you said Muslim brother. So it's interesting you would believe a man would convert, and you seem to believe that on its face, which is a pretty astounding conversion. But you're hypercritical of all the statements he's made regarding running his pimping business.
I don't know. You take people at their face. In Islam, you judge by what is apparent. So things that we cannot.
Again, I don't understand. He takes at face value that when Andrew Tate did his conversion, that was not a character. But when he openly says, I steal money from my women that he says he controls, that these women that he's pimping out, he steals their money on their tax forms. He lies to them about the amount of taxes they're taking and steals it. He says that, don't take him in face value then. That's different. I don't understand why that would be different.
No, because we can't see what is in a person's mind or heart. That's irrelevant. You judge by what is apparent. So if you, for example, Destiny says, I'm a Muslim or I'm a Christian or I'm an atheist, I'm going to take you at your word, at the face. You can only judge people by what they show. You can't have these kind of bad assumptions about.
So then why do you take him at his face when he says he's just playing a role?
That's consistent. How is that inconsistent? I'm taking him at his face in both cases.
Then why don't you take him at his face when he accurately describes and lays out how to run a pimping business?
I explained. I do take that at its face.
So
that was my whole argument. Even if you take it at its face, it's not enough to prove that he was engaged in trafficking. That's the whole argument, Destiny. Look, you're a really smart, Destiny. I really admire your ability to argue in a debate, but you really are not conversant with the points that I'm making. I acknowledge that take him completely at his face, all of the messages, all of the videos, take him at its face. It's still not enough to prove that he was engaged in trafficking, because the standards of trafficking and rape are very subjective. Okay. Coercion, fraud, exploitation, these are all contested terms.
They're all part of the Romanian criminal code.
I cited Yale Law Review articles.
What is Yale Law? First of all, you didn't cite any of these articles. Also, secondly, these things, we're talking about Romanian criminal law. We're not talking about the U.S. criminal code.
I've talked about the U.S. trafficking laws that dictate what Romanian prosecutors do through DyCot, through
you haven't shown.
Is he right now, all he has laid out is that the United States has a relationship with Romania through DyCot when it comes to the issue of sex trafficking. He has not laid out that we use that relationship to target Andrew Tate because we're angry or apparently scared of Andrew Tate enough to risk a huge international political operation and scandal to suppress his speech through arresting him, because he's radicalizing 14-year-olds into sexism. It just doesn't make any sense for the American government to do that. Like, I don't like Andrew Tate. I don't like his politics, but it doesn't make any sense for the American government to risk their reputation going after Andrew Tate when there's actual journalists in the world who are actually exposing America's misdeeds. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because the as much as people talk about like Andrew Tate criticizing America or criticizing the establishment, his criticisms of the establishment are the most vague milquetoast criticisms you could possibly imagine, because he's not that intelligent when it comes to politics. So again, it doesn't make any sense, and he's making this accusation with no evidence of conspiracy. So why should I give this any mention, give this my ear at all?
Anything Romania, though, that they're being influenced by the United States to put political charges there.
So again, I have your standards, Destiny. It's suggestive. it's suggestive that the U.S. is involved.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to admit that, all you have is a suggestion, and that's literally it. Okay.
Everything that you've said is just a suggestion.
No, I've got direct testimony from Andrew Tate.
I'm fine with that.
I have direct stuff, and you're saying we'll just ignore that he's just faking it. You just have suggestions.
The direct statement, okay, that you said, "Oh, I'm going to throw you off a balcony," turned out not to be from Andrew Tate at all. So you don't have any.
It came from the person working on his behalf. It came from one of his thugs, one of his goons. If I hired somebody to go threaten somebody else, I'm also committing a crime.
His organization. I've got plenty of direct statements from Andrew Tate on how to run his pimping business. We just listened to 2 or 3 minutes of talking about it.
Maybe his employee, part of the organization, spoke out of line and wasn't actually representing the business practices of Andrew Tate.
Of them?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds
where's the
totally
direct connection, Destiny?
The direct. We can go and read more.
Like totally autistic about like, oh, there has to be explicit proof and explicit connection. Okay, we can play that game too, Destiny. Like, where's the explicit proof? Where did?
To be clear, we're not even asking for explicit proof, whatever standard of proof is. Like you're saying, oh, this is such a high barrier for evidence when talking about Dicot. He didn't give any proof. The only proof he gave was that America has a relationship with Romania. That's it. That's it. That's not any evidence. So you cannot be, oh, Destiny's complaining about my evidence not being enough. Your evidence doesn't exist. So the problem isn't the barrier for evidence is too high. You just have no evidence. That's the problem.
Destiny, I need a recorded video of him saying that I am not role playing right now, and I'm going to throw you off the balcony if you step foot out of this house. That's the standard I need. I'm just applying your standard, Destiny, because you, when you say that there's no U.S. involvement in his case, and I prove to you that Dicot in the Romanian government is directly connected to the U.S. government. You can go to the State Department website that describes the relationship in detail. It's not a conspiracy theory. You say, oh, that's just.
Sure. So in a transcript that was leaked, one of the messages that was exchanged was Andrew Tate saying that Tristan and Georgiana are over there, but I lead them. In terms of, another girl asked him, I heard you're the one running the OnlyFans and TikTok girls business. I can link you this article if you want where those logs come from. But yes, clearly there was a hierarchy here. And clearly he is in charge of running and managing these people. These leaked logs are consistent with everything else he's also said too. I mean, I don't know how many logs you want, but I don't think I show you anything that would honestly convince you.
There's nothing that.
Yeah, I know. There's nothing that could change your mind.
That you're trying to establish. There's nothing that says that these women couldn't have gone out at any time. Many of them did go out. Which shows that they could actually leave the house, and if they were so coerced, like all you can say is that he intimidated them so much that they couldn't run away. That's basically the case that you're making. It's highly speculative.
Yeah, well, one of them wanted to leave, and they said explicitly that you're not allowed to be anywhere on your own. You can only leave the house with other people protecting you.
Right, well, if that's evidence, then why can't you accept that the U.S. threatens economic sanctions on the basis of human trafficking? Romania has been threatened to be sanctioned.
We're going to say that Romania has been threatened to be sanctioned on the issue of human trafficking. So that's America using its influence to make Andrew Tate. Again, there's nothing here. These aren't related. He's trying to make something that doesn't exist. He's walking back from his conclusion. He has to find a conspiracy, because if he isn't, then his Muslim brother is just a cyber pimp. That's all he is. And if he's a cyber pimp, then his buddy is in tough shit. And look, I don't know why he made it about Andrew Tate being his Muslim brother. It's like he made it out of nowhere, but it really does feel like he's defending him because they share similar religious views.
By the U.S. on the basis of human trafficking. How can you not see that that's relevant to this case?
When did the United States threaten to sanction Romania?
By putting them on the tier 2 watch list on the TIPS report, human trafficking report. That's why I cited. So you don't know these facts about this case. That's the problem.
No. Hold on.
All you know is
this
like
has
some
nothing
videos
to do with
on,
the case.
on
And
YouTube.
two, I asked you for a year.
That's your research.
You're telling me the United States threatened to sanction.
I don't understand how he can be so snarky when he's come off as so uneducated and unwilling to engage on the topic. I don't understand how he can be this snarky. Definitely when he didn't even know about the police officer.
Yeah, any country that is on the tier 2 watch list is under threat of sanction.
So they didn't sanction them. They're under threat of sanction.
Under threat, yes.
So they didn't threaten to sanction them. They didn't sanction them.
Yes, under threat of sanction. That is what it means.
Okay, so there was no sanction. None of that. All of that is not true. Okay.
Yeah, under threat of sanction is the same as under threat of I'm going to throw you off the balcony. Let's just use your standards, Destiny.
Okay.
to go into the Q&A. So
go for it.
want to say, folks, thanks so much for your questions. Couple of quick housekeeping things as I switch it over into the Q&A. First, our guests are linked in the description box. That includes if you're listening via the podcast, as we put all of our debates on the podcast, and you can find both.
Okay, boys, that's enough of this. I don't want to watch any more of this. I think, okay, final conclusions when it comes to this debate. I guess like final conclusion is just like Destiny smashed here. Really good performance from him. This other guy just, it felt like he wanted to defend him from like, oh, we're gonna, because he's Muslim, we got to find a way to defend this sex trafficking pimp. Which is insane considering how religiously conservative he is. It felt like he didn't even know some of the basic facts of it, so he tried to make it about everything else and about a supposed conspiracy that he has no evidence for.